two-time Academy Award winner Sean Penn slammed the Oscars for, quote, extraordinary cowardice. He was alluding to the newly released biopic, or biopic, depending on how you say it, The Apprentice, which is about a young Donald J. Trump. Here was Penn at the Marrakesh Film Festival.
That the producers of them, the Academy, have exercised really extraordinary cowardice when it comes to being part of the bigger world of expression, and in fact have largely been part of limiting the imagination.
Penn went on to praise the movie about our next President of the United States.
The Apprentice. It's kind of jaw-dropping how afraid this business of mavericks is when they get a great film like that.
Penn continued, quote, when something sneaks through, it is to be celebrated. Certainly he's not winning any best Oscars for that interview. I don't think. He seemed to be struggling quite a bit.
Yeah, do you think he was hungover? Jeez.
Yeah. But, you know, obviously you're going to have actors and actresses, directors always critiquing what's included in the Oscars, what's not included. I think politics has seeped into everything, as we know. This was obviously a controversial movie. I remember just a few months ago, before it was released, them struggling to even find a distributor for that movie, The Apprentice, about a young Donald Trump coming up in New York City, Amber.
Yeah, and there were a couple of scenes in it that were apparently pretty graphic about the president-elect's alleged sexual misconduct, which was one of the reasons why people had an issue with it. They didn't want to stray into the lane of being defamatory. And then Sebastian Stan, the actor who plays Trump, talked in a recent Actors Roundtable, whatever those things are called. They talked to another actor. It's like very fun and insider Hollywoody. He was talking about how some people apparently would not appear on the round table with him because they didn't want to be associated with the Apprentice film. And I wasn't really clear, though, on whether that was because they didn't want to give the appearance of supporting something that elevates Trump's profile, or if it was because they were under the impression that Trump was going to win and they didn't want to be associated with something that was negative for Trump. Maybe the latter, because of what we saw with like the Washington Post and the LA Times. But I mean, obviously, weird developments around that film. I haven't seen it. I don't know if you have. But.
So I did, just because, you know, on this show, others, we've talked about it because of the controversy of it. Funny enough, you know, I found Trump in this role, I thought it was well done and well produced. You know, the actor from Succession who plays Jeremy Strong, who plays Ralph Cohn, does a really impressive job of capturing
Michael Cohn?
Roy Cohn.
Roy Cohn.
Yep. You know, Trump's fixer from back in the day. Right. I actually, you know, there were that scene that you mentioned in terms of the sexual assault. I actually found Trump in the role to be a sympathetic character almost.
Really?
Where he, you know, the opening scene is he's struggling to collect rent from some of the public housing that Fred, his father, owns in the city, and getting spit on and thrown out and kicked out. And attacked, and it's the story of a young kid really just trying to come up and make a name for himself, you know, in this relationship with this fixer early on, you know, building Trump Tower and building that empire that then led obviously to the TV show The Apprentice, and now this two-time presidency. So even as a Democrat, I found, again, the role of Trump in this story to be almost sympathetic and work against some of the, maybe, you know, I'm a moderate Democrat and see some sympathy with that, you know, struggle to make a name for yourself. But Sean Penn isn't doing the film any favors by coming out there and saying something like that, I don't think.
No, and Sean Penn doesn't exactly have the greatest history either. I mean, he has been accused of domestic violence and abuse and all kinds of nasty things. So, yeah, usually putting the Sean Penn stamp on something is not the biggest endorsement that you could ask for. And also, the committees, whether it's the Oscars or the Grammys, clearly do not like being told what to do.
Certainly.
Whenever these films or albums or whatever they are get pushed really hard by people, they tend to kind of shirk away from that. One story I always remember when it comes to the Grammys specifically was it's an indication of how quickly they can turn against something, and their opinion is very unlikely to change. Back when Lana Del Rey gave her first Saturday Night Live performance, which was widely panned because she was not great at live singing at that time, it was more she was a recording artist. There are anonymous members of the Grammys committee who have said that they would never take her seriously again after that. So even though she's had these hugely successful and critically acclaimed albums since then, she has oftentimes not been under Grammy consideration because of that initial first impression. So maybe something similar is happening here with The Apprentice. They just don't want to touch anything that has to do with Trump.
And anything controversial in that regard. Amber, I wonder too, I'd love to hear your take on, it seems like, Hollywood has always been a bastion of the left, Democrats. Joe Biden, before he dropped out of the race, raised, a record sum of money at an event in L.A. with George Clooney and others. But we're seeing, the Reagan movie, for example, with Dennis Quaid. We're seeing almost a little bit of a dance with some actors, actresses, directors feeling a little bit more comfortable to come out necessarily as Republicans or conservative or have some conservative leanings in a way that we really haven't seen from Hollywood in a long time.
It definitely feels like there's a cultural shift in normalization of conservative themes and also of supporting Donald Trump. I mean, whether it's all the athletes doing the Trump dance, right? And none of them really got canceled for it. Previously, there was a conservative anonymous group for members of Hollywood that was run by Jeremy Boring, who is now of the Daily Wire, where if they were secretly conservative, they could find these like-minded people and talk about their ideas without getting canceled by the rest of Hollywood. That group ended up dissolving, but now maybe you can talk about things more openly because there was this huge popular support from the American people for Donald Trump, for conservative ideas. So we'll see if that actually translates to the production of film. I think Reagan's a great example. You have some Taylor Sheridan projects. People have been criticizing Yellowstone for the ending where the Duttons...
Don't give anything away.
I won't give anything away. No spoilers. But if you've been watching Landman, there's a lot of conservative undertones in that, overtones actually in that show. And those projects tend to do really well with a broader group of people because it's kind of refreshing to see that in entertainment.
And Hollywood, like any industry, and they might be a little late to the game, to your point, Amber, follows the money, right? And the viewership and ratings and what's resonating with the American people. And again, Ronald Reagan was the president of the Screen Actors Guild. Maybe we'll see, back in the 50s, maybe we'll see a resurgence of more conservatives playing more of a leading role based on where the industry is headed and viewership is headed in Hollywood.
Yeah, we'll definitely see. I think it's more likely to happen now than at any time in probably the past 2 decades. But we're gonna
keep the show in D.C. and not move it to L.A.
Yeah, sorry.
No about that.
Sorry, guys. If you're in D.C., you're stuck with us. But we're gonna cover more here on Rising right after this break. Stick around.